Last video of the day, and we're looking at the downbeats, the low points for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I feel bad. I knew when I did Colorado yesterday, I'm talking about Quebec, and I thought, man, I got to talk about Columbus. And it is tough because Columbus has been in the league roughly 20 years. They haven't been out of the second round. They only got to the second round last spring. In order to get to the second round last spring, they had to hold on to players they probably should have traded. And if they traded those players, they probably would have been out in round one. So, yeah, this is not that easy. Because I do have a certain amount of affection for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not the same as EA Sports has had over the years, where every time you simulate a season, Columbus is number one. But still, I do have some affection for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I do feel the pain of their fandom because I cheer for a team that has gone through its share of pain in its 50 years now. So I understand it. Now, in terms of all-time losses, Marc Denis with 146. And Marc Denis was one of a few goaltenders they have had which never quite reached their potential. Pascal Leclerc comes to mind as well. And that's an issue for them, is some of their development. Guys like Gerdev, Brule, they've had a number of big-name junior players and big-name prospects that just never quite reached that level. Now, things seem to be getting better. So, their all-time longest drought is 2001 through 2008, which was 7 seasons. That's right from their expansion on. And then they made it in their 8th year thanks to Steve Mason having an amazing rookie season. Absolutely amazing rookie season for Mason that he never really followed up with anything anywhere near as good as that. So it raised that bar really, really high, and then he never quite got back to it. Now, when you get to lost assets, I have to mention Panarin and Bobrovsky. Now, Bobrovsky, it's been, a mixed bag for him in Florida thus far, and yes, he's very expensive. And you can look and say, well, Korpisalo and Merzlikins are playing really well, and it's true, but it feels like it's a lost asset because the guys left as UFAs. So even though Columbus stays competitive and stay close to a playoff spot, even with all the injuries, it still feels like last year they had these big-name players that they could have potentially traded at the deadline and got a lot back for, and they still would have been in that position this year to make the playoffs, and yet they didn't get a deal done for either of them, and you have to ask yourself, maybe if Korpisalo was thrown into the starting role last year after Bobrovsky gets moved, maybe Korpisalo would have stepped up. He did this year, so we'll never know. Now, short-term coach Gary Agnew, 2007, had 5 games behind the bench. Again, we're going to be seeing short-term coaches. We're going to be seeing interim coaches. 0-4-1 was his record, and then Claude Noel was behind the bench in 2018 for a record of 10-8-6 before he was out. So that's your short-term coaches. Now, not in the Hall of Fame. Again, this is your top point producer who is retired. Your top wins guy on the wins list who is retired, not in the Hall of Fame. Rick Nash, probably not a Hall of Famer. Probably the best known member of the Columbus Blue Jackets, though, in their 20-year history. And then Steve Mason. And Mason, again, had that great start, and it just didn't quite add up beyond that, but he had the great start in 08-09, which, of course, broke that drought. Now, in their first year, 2000-2001, they had a 28-39-9-6 record, 71 points. Year 11, 2011-2012, 29-46-7 for 65 points. They're better in their expansion year than they are in year 11. Columbus's biggest failing along the way has been any kind of sustained success, and I don't know whether you can just track this down as poor trading, drafting, development, whatever it is, but Columbus had a lot of problems the first, I'll say, approximately 15 years are in the league, and I don't think Columbus fans are going to argue with me. I also want to point out the Columbus jersey I'm wearing isn't an ugly one. It's a Reebok. It's got the Blue Jackets logo they no longer have on their shoulder. They now have the cannon, and it's virtually identical to what they wear now, except it doesn't have the cannon on the shoulder. This was the first Columbus jersey I ever had, so I was like, they don't really have an ugly one. You can point to their expansion year and that logo and say that was kind of ugly, but I knew what they were going for, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. The neon color is a little bit unforgivable, but I wouldn't necessarily qualify it as ugly as much as, well, they were trying to something different When your team's 29-30 coming into the NHL, you're trying something different than everybody else. It's a challenge, looking for colors, looking for a design that doesn't resemble somebody else. So at least they had that going for them. And they had murder hornets on their jerseys before we knew what they were. I know it's not a murder hornet. Now, lowest points percentage against any one team against Colorado, 377 winning percentage. So, and they were in the same division as Colorado for a long time before they moved to the East. Lowest goals for per game. Tampa Bay shows up there with a 1.97. So again, the 90s expansion and beyond, even though they're in that expansion era. So there you go. Goals against per game. Edmonton. They've allowed the most goals per game against Edmonton, 3.57. And I can tell you, Columbus, I think we're going to see a better team from here on out. John Tortorella behind the bench for a nice long extended period. It feels like a lot of these negatives, hopefully, are going to be overridden by a much better future for them. And yet, if I'm picking playoffs for next year, I'm still going to have Columbus probably out of the playoffs because you look at that division. The Metro is so stacked, right? So I did the video the other day, which was just way too early predictions of the standings, and everybody went, "Do you see what Shannon's saying is going to happen?" I don't think I said that was what was going to happen, but that's the internet. Easier to judge than to actually listen. So, when we get into minimum of 100 games played, lowest points scored per game, with Columbus, Scott LaChance, .036. That kind of surprises me, even though he was a defensive defenseman. I don't think he was that bad. But again, I liked him in Vancouver. I thought he was okay. Jean-Luc Grandpierre, .069. Ole Christian Tollefson. So if you had multiple first names, you hyphenate your first name, you probably didn't score very well. He had a .069 points per game as well. Jody Shelley, .076, and Jared Boll with a heady .120 points per game over his way above 100 games played for Columbus. So we have two tough players and three defensive defensemen. Grandpierre, I know he was a defenseman. I'm trying to think of, did he have a lot of penalty minutes? I don't remember that he did. Now, lowest save percentage, minimum of 50 games played. So remember, it's a minimum of 50 games played. Frederick Norrena, .899. I thought he was okay. Again, I thought he was okay, not earth-shattering. Columbus has struggled over the years before they got Bobrovsky to find that starting goaltender, and then Bobrovsky took it to that whole next level. We'll see if Korpisalo and Merzlikins can get there. Matthew Guerin, .902. And by say get there, I mean the sustained success. So yeah, Guerin, .902. Steve Mason had a .903 save percentage in his time as a Columbus Blue Jacket. And Mark Denis, .905. Which isn't bad considering he came in as a goaltender for an expansion team, but he never really lived up to the advanced billing. When Denis came in, it was thought that this was a good young goaltender who was going to be a starter for this franchise for a long time, and it never really worked out that way. Goalie with the best name. You could go with Korpisalo. You could argue Ron Tugnut here as well, but Elvis. The guy's name's Elvis. Elvis Merzlikins. And Elvis has to be the goaltender who has the best name, right? Has to be. You can't go with anybody but Elvis because his name's Elvis. And he's named after the king. And so, hail to the king is what I would be yelling out when he makes his saves. Like I'm talking like Evil Dead, hail to the king, baby. Army of Darkness. But yeah, hail to the king, baby. That's Elvis. And of course that is a Bruce. Anyways, don't want to get on the whole Evil Dead and how that was because Bruce Campbell has been Elvis before, but he wasn't. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah, Elvis best name, and it's for the very reason that I just stated, which is you can go on a tangent about the name Elvis Merzlikins. Columbus as an overall franchise, it's been tough. Like I get asked every now and then to grade franchises. Like, what would you grade franchises as? Well, I don't really like to get into grading franchises because once you hit the bottom of the barrel and when you're at 31, people are going to get frustrated. And rightfully so. Like you could point right now and say, well, Ottawa's got the worst. Not really though. You look at some of those trades, they've worked out pretty well. And so it's easy from one day to the next to perhaps criticize a general manager, an organization, and an overall direction a team's headed. But it can really be a matter of some lucks involved and a lot of effort. And right now, Columbus feels like they're trending in the right direction. As an organization, they've got the general manager in place that should be there for a good long time. They've got a coach who should be there for a good long time as well. and they seem to be doing their best to keep everybody around that's currently on the team. It does hurt that Panarin left. Bobrovsky, not a big deal. Bobrovsky leaves, and Merzlikins and Korpisalo have put up numbers that are better than what Bobrovsky's put up in Florida, right? But the Panarin loss hurts. If they had Panarin this year, who knows? Now, the thing is, maybe Panarin wouldn't have put up the kind of numbers if he'd stayed in Columbus that he's put up with the Rangers, but again, that's all just crazy speculation at this point. So, here's to hoping that better days are ahead for Columbus, and I mean that. Whether I do or don't cheer for Columbus, I would like to see them do well. I think the league does better with really true parity where there are 31 good organizations. They're not all going to have great years, but just good organizations, and it feels like Columbus is trending in the right direction. Let me know how you feel as a Columbus fan watching this about the trend and how many of these lows you think are going to change. And how do you feel about the lost asset? Could I have put Nash up there as a lost asset because they didn't win with Rick Nash in the lineup? Or was Nash part of the problem? Let me know your thoughts regarding that in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a lot. I will talk to you again soon.